Hi everybody, this video is sponsored by contribution from Carissa, and here's her story. First off, thank you for all your videos, Ollie. I'm so sorry that what I could donate was not much. Your videos and your authenticity are worth far more than what I'm able to do right now. I'm sure you hear this a lot, that people don't have enough money, but in all honesty, I don't, and I wish I could give you more than I am able. I hope you're still I hope you'll still hear me out. There aren't as many people who are as responsive and as transparent as you have been, and it's so appreciated. You really are one of a kind in this community. It makes me feel like I have hope and I am not alone. I remember when I first discovered your channel about a year ago. It helped me through some very dark times when my narc mother cut me off after nearly 30 years. But that is a whole other story. It's not what I want to rehash in full. I'm in therapy now, and it's actually pretty painful to bring up all the details. So here it goes. Basically, I tried to help my brother, the golden child, out by agreeing to get a house with him, his girlfriend, and their unborn child. My brother picked out the house and said he'd give me X amount of money to help with the security deposit and X amount of money each month. I was really counting on him because the house was lavish and way out of my price range. But my brother insisted on a house because he could never live in a condo or an apartment, which is what I always had done up until my brother and his girlfriend decided they really wanted to be a family with me. My brother also did not have a large income and always lived with my mother, even at 23 years old, which is the age he was when he left my mother's and moved in with me. I wanted to help my brother, but instead him and his girlfriend ended up hosting large parties every single night of the week. They would have drug dealers at the house and I would have to kick them out, and my brother would rage at me in front of people. I never told him he couldn't have people over, but Ollie, when there was a pregnant 20-year-old in the house along with cocaine and upwards of 12 cars in my driveway, if I would so much as if I would so much as go out to dinner. The house would be filled with underage strangers doing drugs and drinking alcohol. I began living in fear of my home. I hated feeling like I was the bad one to press my brother to get the drugs and strangers out of the house each night. I began asking him for money and he agreed to help me pay because at that point I'd put $13,000 into the house and he hadn't given me a dime towards it. He wrote me a check for $400. I felt relieved that he was finally contributing a bit. Then he had the party at the house again. I witnessed the same drug dealer whom I told my brother I did not want at the house, selling coke to the pizza guy. It took me 3 attempts, but with no one to back me up. It took me 3 attempts with no one to back me up to get this guy finally to leave my house. My brother became so enraged he told me that I better not cash that fucking check or he would call the fucking police. I could not believe my own brother was acting this unreasonable, like he was some sort of thief. I never cashed the check. He's a cokehead. He's a cokehead. This is how cokeheads act. And he used you to have his own little drug house. That's what all your brother is a little user. I was so uncomfortable having to play the disciplinarian to a surrogate son only a few years younger than myself. His girlfriend was also drinking and using drugs on a regular basis. I gently approached her when she was in her bedroom one night, and I just said, "Hey, it's pretty obvious to me that you're pregnant." She was very visibly pregnant. She said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Are you okay? Have you decided what you're going to do?" And she said she was probably going to have an abortion. I asked her if she had seen a doctor, and she said she hadn't. And I told her that regardless of what she wanted to do, it was her choice and she should definitely see a doctor. And I offered to go with her if she needed any support, any sort of support, because my brother had told me that none of her friends knew. Well, if she's already showing, it's probably too late for an abortion. The only ones aware of the situation were me and my mother, according to his account. His girlfriend assured me she would see a doctor that week and take care of everything. He told her, "All right, that's great," and I understood that this was a very difficult situation for her to be in, and I'd always be right down the hall if she needed to talk. She was very flat in her speech. I could not decide whether she was in a lot of denial about the situation or whether she did not care, but she did not seem to want to talk in any depth. She was probably high. She was probably high. All I could imagine was this 20-year-old girl being drunk and going into premature labor in the house. It horrified me. I was secretly petrified by the fact that him and his girlfriend were still deciding whether or not to have an abortion, though she was allegedly leaning towards it. If she did decide to keep the baby, or perhaps if it was too late to have an abortion, as I suspected it might be, the baby could suffer permanent damage from her selfish need to party. Already riddled with stress and panic due to the daily because of the living situation, I began experiencing physical symptoms the following week when his girlfriend did not go to the doctor, but instead the partying continued. My brother also did not go to work every single day, as my mom told me he did. He would only be gone for a sufficient amount of time, where he could have possibly been working about 2 to 3 times a week. I knew this because I worked from home, as had been for the past 7 years. The longer I lived with him, the more the situation started to unravel. I realized my brother was a complete stranger, only seeing me as a means to an end. As the out of control parties raged on, there was no doctor visits or decisions made about his girlfriend's pregnancy. I began locking myself in my car and just sobbing until there wasn't enough to get all the emotion out, and I just started to scream. When my brother and girlfriend would leave the house at times during the day, I would begin to shake and again lock myself away in my bathroom and just scream. I thought I was going to vomit because I was in so much distress. I finally decided to call my mother to see if she could help me handle the situation. I explained to her the extent of the drug usage in the home with both of them, and how I was being made sick, that an innocent child was being harmed, and I could no longer cowardly watch that sort of thing take place. She accused me of lying. She accused me of being the addict. She did this almost a decade ago when I came to her and my father with a concern about my older brother's serious drug usage. My mother told me I was making things up and I was just trying to cover for the fact that I was a raging alcoholic. It fell upon deaf ears, and my older brother eventually fell into a coma because of a drug overdose at 15 years old. Survived through it, and she still seemed to turn a blind eye. She would still accuse me of being the addict. The label honestly didn't matter to me. I was very close with my brother, and I was young, and I reached out to my family for help in this situation. I thought we would come together as a family and get him through this rough time. They only sent him to rehab when he was ordered to after hospital stays. And then in 2007, he passed away, dead in his bed, covered in his own blood and urine. This devastated me beyond words. I still haven't really recovered from that, but I'm going off on a tangent. But now you understand a bit about the dysfunctional structure of my family when it comes to these sort of matters. My mother became even more hostile and angry with me anytime I would call her, so I stopped calling, thinking I was on my own in this nightmare. Instead of speaking about the real issue, the nonstop partying, the pregnant girlfriend, my mother brought up the size of my new home. She asked me how I afforded that anyways. Surely I could not afford that. I had to reassure her, even though my home was large, hers had more garages, and she had beautiful gardens, which I didn't have. I tried everything to build her up so she wouldn't become upset with me. When I bought a new pair of shoes, my brother's girlfriend told her and texted me. She sent me a pair of those shoes and said, "No, Mom, I'm not going to take a picture of my shoes. How much did they cost?" "I don't know, Mom. They cost a lot." "I know they cost a lot." "Yeah, I think they were a lot." "I don't know," I texted her back. "Send me a picture. I want to see them." "Mom, you don't even like this style of shoe. I've never seen you wear anything like them. You honestly would not like them anyways. Show me." She was relentless. I was so hurtful that all she focused on was my possessions. Finally, the stress got so bad I was rendered unable to even get out of bed most days. I tried calling my father. My father was usually the more receptive of the two, but only because he is a drama queen. It took me decades to figure out that he was never really concerned, but thrived on the drama. So I called him as a last resort, thinking he would be able to somehow take charge of the situation and help me out. My father told me everything. I told my father everything. I told him the entire truth. I finally felt validated. He said it was completely irresponsible how my brother was behaving, and he asked if his girlfriend's mother knew about this. And I told him not that I was aware of, because she was afraid to tell her mother. Well, she has to know, my father barked. What's her phone number? I didn't know, but I knew her name, and I gave it to my father. I found her phone number through a Google search because she owns a company, so she isn't difficult to locate. He called, told her everything. The next day, my brother was furious with me when he found out the news. He charged at me, got in my face, and screamed at me. He told me what a horrible bitch I was. He told me he could not believe how of a rotten person I was, because now his girlfriend's mother was going to hate him. I didn't even have the strength in me to articulate myself. I just felt confused and later guilty. But I had been trying for months to handle this situation privately with them. I honestly felt it was the last resort to turn to my father. Later that night, my brother was still refusing to speak to me. He was up in his room alone, and his girlfriend was now staying with her mom. I knocked on his door and asked him if he would talk to me about everything. He told me what a dumb bitch I was because his girlfriend had already gotten the abortion, and I had just made things awful for no reason by bringing my father and mother into it. It was a holiday, and I called my brother's bluff about getting her an abortion. Okay, she didn't get an abortion, but she's getting one in a day. Could you just shut the fuck up? This went on for another couple weeks. My brother telling me she'd gotten an abortion, and then I'd find out she hadn't gotten the abortion. I have no idea why he kept persisting to lie to me, because he waited too long. What actually happened, I found out months later from her mother, was that she could not get an abortion. She went to 3 different doctors after her mother confronted her about what she already suspected was a pregnancy, now confirmed by my father. So 3 doctors in 2 different states, and no one would perform the abortion because she was well into her 5th month of pregnancy, just as I had fears. She had to have the baby, and somehow I was responsible for all of this. My brother stayed at the house giving me the silent treatment for weeks after his girlfriend left, and then being the party was over officially, being that the party was officially over, and he was satisfied with how much he had tortured me, he happily went back to move in with my mother rent free. But I was alone. I'd lost my family. My brother failed drug tests administered by his girlfriend's mother, and he hated me for this. I fell into an even deeper depression and almost a state of disassociation. I lost all motivation to do anything. I lay in my bed alone for months, losing weight, unable to work, and I don't know why. Everything was falling apart. I always thought of myself as rather resilient, able to handle anything, and I've been through a lot, but for some reason this was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. The baby was born a few months later, and I only found out through a text photo on my phone from my father. All of a sudden, my mother and brother were elated about this baby, who they didn't care whether lived or died, or was even born healthy just a mere months before. My brother still refused to speak with me after he was so happy his son was born. Every so often I get a text message from him telling me what a rotten bitch I was, and that he hoped I lose the house, and that him and my mother made fun of me and laughed behind my back every day at what a pathetic bitch I was. The first holiday after that was Easter. My mother always dutifully invited me. I remember feeling so alone when she didn't invite me to a holiday for the first time in my life. It was then that I realized I really did not have a family. A few weeks later, I asked why I wasn't invited to Easter dinner, and she told me not to worry about it because it was over now. I had to accept that answer because I knew that the real answer was that she did not want me at the house. I still struggle with feelings of being the most terrible person in the world. Finally, I was invited to my parents' house, and they let me see my next nephew. I felt a calmness come over me as I was rocking him in his swing. And then my stepfather broke through that sense of peace by yelling out, "You know, you're going to be ugly in about 5 years." I was so taken aback by this malicious, out-of-the-blue remark, I became lightheaded and unable to think properly. My stepfather had an obsession with his appearance, getting chemical peels well into his 60s and an alcoholic, always bringing up how he was the most attractive person in his school and high school. I said nothing to him and then left, not seeing my nephew again until recently. A year after his birth, when I by chance ran into my brother at a small outdoor concert at a park. I wasn't invited to his first birthday party. My mother plays the adoring, grateful grandmother, and I am branded this evil outsider who is not worthy of being around the family. It definitely hurts. I struggled more with my weight than I ever have in my life. I'm a naturally thin person, but my weight plummeted to 84 pounds. I had run out of money because of the massive financial toll having such a large property was taken on me. I have always been financially independent and motivated, but I honestly could not bring myself to work. I was living as a zombie in that large house, unable to even process all that happened. On a few occasions, I reached out to my mother for temporary help so I could get some groceries while I worked myself back on my feet again. My mother said she hadn't a dime to spare. The next day, she left her pay stubs in my mailbox accidentally. She called me to ask if I had gotten them, and I had. She was making more money than ever. I could not believe she could not even spare $10 or $20. I got money any way I could. I borrowed from a few generous people and was able to get groceries again for a bit, but I eventually went on food stamps, which is hardly enough. I knew I was seriously wounded at this time, so I decided to see a therapist. I told my mother this, and she thought it was a good idea. I told her the problem was I couldn't pay for the therapist. My mother suddenly had money and agreed to pay for my treatment until I worked through my issues enough to get back on my feet again. I had started feeling a bit better upon entering therapy. I slowly spilled the details of my long, arduous journey to her. I told my mother that I liked my therapist and thought maybe I could find some form of inner peace again. My mother responded with, "Does your therapist know what a horrible person you are? Did you tell her that?" At my next appointment, my therapist told me that my mother had written her an email, that she had it with me, and she could not pay for her services anymore. I asked my therapist what she said back, and she said she didn't respond, and she wasn't going to respond to her because she understood what she was trying to accomplish by writing that email. She labeled my mother a sadist and a narcissist. It made me wonder how many other people my mother had secretly phoned or emailed about me. A lot of awful, and an awful lot of people had been calling me a drug addict, and I could not for the life of me figure out why. I even began questioning it if I had another personality that I perhaps did not know about was using drugs all the time. I thought also perhaps the accusations could be out of ignorance because I was thin, but now I'm thinking it's possibly a rumor my mother spread about me. As my brother even told me, she says nasty things behind my back, and she always had a habit of undermining any young girl that my brother or stepbrother dated. My mother used to constantly express how much she disliked my brother's current girlfriend and all of his girlfriends for that matter. She now denies this. My stepbrother has no contact with her or my stepfather. It's been over a year for him now. My mother and father would always call his wife trash, make claims that she was abusive to their son they have together. Say that she lived in a trailer, which was disgusting, and she was only with my stepbrother because she wanted money. It goes on with any new person to enter the family. Eventually, I lost my home through an eviction. I think in a way on some unconscious level, despite being as sick as I was, I did sabotage myself. All I heard from the moment I moved into that home was how much I didn't deserve it. No one had a nice thing to say about it. My own brother even wishing that I lost my home. Well, I did, and I went peacefully. That was in February of this year. I lost all of my belongings, everything I worked for, because I couldn't afford to get the items out of storage, and they were eventually sold in public auction. I only took what I could fit in my car. It was so strange, but I felt a sense of peace in homelessness. It was like everything went away. All the pressure, all the judgment, it was gone. I became nothing, so I had nothing to try to live up to anymore. I had always felt like a failure deep down, so actually living my truth felt somehow rewarding to me. I know it's sick. I understand all of that. I understand all of that. But then after 8 nights in my car, I realized I had to get out of the situation. I had no income and was able to borrow a small amount of money. It was extremely difficult to rent with an eviction on my record, like trying to find employment as a felon. Eventually, I found a woman in her 80s and an autistic daughter who allowed me to live in their 700 square foot apartment attached to their home. I was so grateful. It was at a very low price, and I felt manageable. I have told no one of my address. I've been here since about mid-March, and I'm still not comfortable. I haven't been motivated to buy any furniture. I sleep on an air mattress and have one camping chair and no tables. I am fearful of putting effort into gaining materials and having something go wrong and being unable to sustain it again. I'm okay though. I'm glad I have a roof over my head. I don't pay for cable, only internet, and the power bill is minimal. I went from having my own business to now collecting food stamps, and I'm applying for minimum wage jobs. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, but I don't want to collect disability because I fear that it will only hinder me from having to force myself back into society. I know this is long and I'm so sorry for the rant, but I needed you to understand some of what led to my decline. I just need someone to understand. When I was homeless, my father met up with me and all he could say was, "You don't look good. You need to work on your presentation and fix your hair." He told me to make sure I never told anyone about my homelessness, as it reflected badly upon him. My mother ignored my situation and complained incessantly about her difficult life because she had maxed out her Victoria's Secret credit card. She told me this when she met up with me in a parking lot. I was sleeping in my car. So now I'm trying to put the pieces back together, but I'm so afraid of succeeding. I'm very aware of my family's hatred of me. I've always been the one to bring up issues within the family, hoping we can resolve them. But for them, this was the last straw. It's all been about a year now, and I still see my therapist twice a week. I am unable to pay her much, but she allowed me to start a tab. I asked her what she seemed comfortable with as a max price for me to accrue. She said 1,000. I never got trapped at what I owed her. She did not. She did that. I sent her money through PayPal when I could, no matter what I could do. I am now aware I've gone way over the 1,000 limit, and she is not concerned with that one bit. She is insistent about it whenever I bring it up. She's been exceedingly kind to me over this past year, and I felt comfortable with her. The discomfort only started to come when I noticed the special treatment she was giving me, and then wondering if she had motives. I started to honestly wonder in the back of my mind if the initial comfort stemmed from the possibility that she too has narcissistic tendencies. Why else would I have been so comfortable with her, especially during one of the most vulnerable, wounded points of my life? Why could it just be my extreme hypervigilance and inability to trust anyone? I have also ended a relationship with a long-term abusive boyfriend this year as well. I seem to attract these kind of people without even trying. I want to know if I'm being paranoid and why I'm worried about this relationship with my therapist. She brings me gifts without me even asking her. She brought me all organic groceries before. She has bought me shampoo and makeup and art supplies. She even bought me clothing from a really nice boutique. I didn't want to accept it, but she seemed so excited to give it to me. I don't want to disappoint her. When I went into the room in which she had the surprise clothes for me, I went to walk towards them, thinking she obviously started moving forward as I began to walk. Instead, it was so awkward, her body completely rooted in the ground, and I quite literally bumped into her, fell into her arms, and she embraced me. I felt kind of awkward and hugged her back out of obligation. Another time she took me to see trauma therapist for a different kind of treatment. I told her it wasn't necessary because it was too expensive at this time and I didn't want to rack up an even higher bill. She said she would cover it because she made more than enough money and not to worry about it. She got extremely dressed up for this, wearing a short skirt right before she left, and she made the point to put on lip gloss and make sure I noticed by saying, "Nothing wrong with a little bit of lip gloss," and she winked at me. Then we got into her car and drove to another therapist's home. Upon meeting her, she said to me, "You're beautiful." That was the same reaction my therapist had when she first met me. She said, "You're beautiful." Maybe they could sense I needed to hear it or something. I don't know. When we left the session with the trauma therapist, and my therapist said, "Did you notice all those tacky decorations in her house? Hideous." I was just like, it was fine. I thought it was fine. Then we drove back to her office in near silence. We pull up in the parking lot. I was feeling happy and relaxed. I thanked my therapist. As I'm getting out of the car, she put her hand on my cheek, holds it there, and just stares at me for a while. I just started smiling and turned to leave. Maybe that's all normal and I'm just reading too much into things. She really is a good therapist though, and is so caring. She checks in on me between sessions. She even brought me dinner and let me stay at her office after a session we had when I was living in my car. She's been telling me over and over how deeply she cares for me, how she loves me, how I hold a special place in her heart. One time she shared with me that she woke up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep because she'd been thinking about me. She asked me how I feel about the relationship all the time, how I would feel if I were never to see her again. I used to tell her that I too cared for her, but now everything I've been through, I feel so hesitant. I do care for her, but I don't want to make myself vulnerable for someone to take advantage of me if this is some sort of sick game. She's twice my age and single, but perhaps I'm being judgmental. Perhaps she is just being a kind person and I'm judging her. What is kindness, Ollie? Is this true kindness? Could it be possible that someone actually just wants to help me and has my best interests in mind? I hate to go into these minuscule details about her because I very likely sound so crazy. But I've told no one about this, and after everything I've been through, an objective point of view would be nice to have. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I've tried to articulate myself. I tried to best articulate myself. Please don't use my name or any defining details about my life, and the people in it would want you to use this story on your channel. I honestly don't want to hurt anyone or even draw attention to myself. I am very fearful that it could end up causing a lot more harm. I'm just reaching out for some type of guidance. Any input you have would be appreciated. Thanks, Ollie. Thanks again, Ollie. All right. The first thing you need to understand is that you are there primarily to be the scapegoat of your entire family. They want to see you fail. They're there for you to project all their nastiness onto you. You know, your mother has a son husband who you brought up, that whole situation. All of it is intended to make you the blame for all of their problems. They sabotage you, and that's why. And I understand, believe me, I understand the self-sabotage and destroying things and that sense of calm, I guess, you got when you were homeless, because that's what you always thought you were going to end up being. That's what you always thought your lot in life would be. The therapist. I'm not going to say it's not weird. I mean, I had a good therapist who cared. The touchy-feely stuff, I mean, if she's twice your age, maybe it's a motherly thing. Maybe it's more. it's tough to say. But to be well over $1,000 in the hole to her, and she keeps buying you. I've never heard of a therapist buying somebody gifts, clothing. I mean, I understand you were homeless, but she either has feelings for you, she sees you as a mother, she sees herself as a mother figure, or she's so fascinated by your story, but that doesn't equate to the gift giving. I'm not saying you should leave her as a therapist, but you need to be careful with this. Or you need to be honest about how you, like, what exactly you want from her. What is it you want from her? I don't know. Because it seems like, and I'm not saying she's crossed the line. I mean, the touchy-feely stuff, maybe a little. But she hasn't tried that. She's helped you. So, I mean, I wish I could give you better advice on that. The thing you need to understand is you're put in all this position because your parents made you to be the projection for all their issues. All those drugs, all that shit, all of it. It was all just to project their own, to project the responsibility of destroying their children onto you. That's it. That's it. And we're talking about 20-year-old, cocaine, pregnant. It's crazy. And all that's projected back on you, and that's the way it's been your whole life. Cut them out, keep them out. They're doing you a favor. They are going to, when they're gonna need supply eventually, and they're gonna come looking for it. And you have to be prepared to reject them at that point. The therapist, I don't know. I don't think you're being paranoid, but be careful. You're not being paranoid. It seems a little weird to me. But if she's helping you, she's helping you. Just be careful and know what you want out of the situation. And, you know, that's the best you can do there, because you don't want to keep taking steps back. So thank you for your contribution. Don't worry about the size. That doesn't matter. I mean, I read stories for free anyway. Especially the fact that you gave anything based on what you've been through financially and homeless, and I appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you for your story. I understand all that. And you got to understand, your happiness that you would have from homelessness is very short-lived. You need to start bringing possessions back into your life. You need to start living a normal life without them in it, and you will see it gets better. You will see it gets better. You've hit rock bottom, and you lived through it. What are you afraid of now? What are you afraid of now? You have the ability to work for yourself and make money. You have the ability to do a lot of things, so do them. Okay, you've hit rock bottom and you came out the other side. So keep pushing forward. So thank you again for your contribution. Thank you for your story. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you like your story read on the channel, or you have a topic you'd like me to cover, or a narcissist you'd like to expose, you know what to do with the PayPal link in the description box. I'll have the video right back to you. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon.